Picture the bustling city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, back in the early 1930s. Steel mills echo in the background, and the air is thick with the grit and determination that shaped so many stories of American resilience. In a compact neighborhood, an energetic little boy named Frank John Gorshin Jr. is born on April 5, 1933, into a devout Catholic household full of laughter, song, and a deep connection to Slovenian heritage. That heritage runs strong. His father, Frank Sr., is a second-generation Slovene American, while his mother, Frances, sometimes called Fanny, came to America from Slovenia as a little girl, an immigrant's dream in a city of immigrants. Now, if you imagine them at home, cooking fragrant meals or practicing vibrant folk songs, you'll see the roots of a boy who grew up hearing Slovene before he even got fluent in English. Frank's parents were fixtures in Pittsburgh's Slovene community. They sang together in the Slovenian singing society Prešeren, named after the great Slovene poet Franz Prešeren. The environment was rich with cultural pride, blending old-world tradition with new-world possibilities. In that swirl of languages, traditions, and strong work ethic, Frank Gorshin grew up absorbing every detail. He was that curious kid who would tilt his head, watch people's mannerisms, and soak up every accent and gesture. No wonder that before he even started school, he gravitated toward trying out voices, facial expressions, maybe even comedic bits, although at that time he probably just seemed like an outgoing child with a knack for mimicking the neighbors. Fast forward to the late 1940s. Frank is 15 years old, full of restless energy and that grin that would someday become famous. The big steel city is no Hollywood, but it does boast movie theaters that beckon folks with their neon lights. Enter the Sheridan Square Theater, where young Frank picks up a part-time job as an usher, probably not realizing how pivotal it will be for his future. Between the whir of projectors and the hush that falls over audiences just before the film begins, Frank becomes mesmerized by the stars on the screen. As an usher, he's there to seat guests, but in reality he is laser-focused on the actors. Night after night, he drinks in their expressions, gestures, quirks, and tics, stashing each nuance in a mental catalog he's only begun to build. Already the seeds of his future Impressionist act are quietly sprouting. By the dawn of the 1950s, that shy, or not-so-shy, teenage usher has grown more confident. In 1951, while still in high school, Frank enters a talent contest in Pittsburgh. Whether it's an impression or a comedic bit, he brings enough charm and skill to clinch first prize. That prize leads to a real paying gig, a one-week performance engagement at Jackie Heller's Carousel Nightclub in New York. This is a major milestone, the point where the dream transforms from mere possibility to actual reality. But fate throws a cruel wrench into the works. 2 nights before he's to start his New York engagement, Frank's 15-year-old brother is struck by a car and dies. It's devastating, unimaginable. Yet his parents, grieving though they are, insist that Frank honor the contract and go to New York. In the swirl of heartbreak, he stands on the stage delivering humor or impressions or a combination of both, channeling a kind of emotional resilience many teens wouldn't have. This heartbreak-tinged foray foreshadows the grit Frank will rely on throughout his career. He eventually graduates from Peabody High School in Pittsburgh. Rather than leaping straight to the limelight, Frank, with that pragmatic sense instilled by his parents, chooses to study drama at Carnegie Tech, now Carnegie Mellon University. Carnegie Tech's drama school is esteemed, known for churning out top-tier talent. Between classes, Frank can't resist performing at local stages and clubs. It's easy to imagine him bustling from campus to a smoky club, launching into impressions that bring the audience to tears of laughter. In that environment, He's honing every tool he possesses: voice control, comedic timing, and uncanny ability to read a crowd, all of which will soon become hallmarks of his career. But then in 1953, Uncle Sam beckons. Like so many young Americans, Frank is drafted into the U.S. Army. Suddenly, he's whisked away to Germany for a year and a half. Fortunately, he's assigned to Special Services, the Army's entertainment arm, where his comedic gifts become an asset. The Army's job for Frank is basically keep the troops smiling. During this period, he meets Maurice Bergman, a figure who later introduces him to Hollywood agent Paul Kohner. Even though he's in uniform, Frank is, in a sense, already laying the foundation for his transition into professional show business. Interestingly, the Army records of his service would go up in flames in the 1973 National Personnel Records Center fire. So those details of his service are shrouded in a bit of mystery, perhaps adding an extra layer of intrigue to the story. Once he finishes his stint in the Army, he steps back onto American soil with a determination to make it in entertainment. It's now 1956, and Frank dives headfirst into stage work while also catching the eye of Hollywood casting directors. Between Heaven and Hell, released that same year, marks his official film debut. He's suddenly in the world of movie sets, lights, scripts, and cameras. An exciting leap for the young man who once studied star mannerisms from the corner of a movie theater. In these early cinematic outings, Frank pops up in a handful of B-movies, films like Hot Rod Girl, 1956, Drag Strip Girl, 1957, and Invasion of the Saucermen, 1957. Though these titles might not be on the tip of every modern viewer's tongue, they gave Frank critical on-camera experience and began to showcase that wiry, energetic persona. There's something about the combination of his lean frame, wide mouth, and those bright, mischievous eyes under dramatic eyebrows that made him perfect for slightly off-kilter roles. Hollywood might not have fully known what to do with him yet, but the comedic seeds are there, waiting for just the right opportunity. Then comes 1957, and a role in the submarine thriller Run Silent, Run Deep might have been Frank's big break, except for an event that nearly cost him his life. During an insane drive from Pittsburgh to Hollywood, a 39-hour odyssey with no real sleep, Frank dozes off at the wheel. The resulting crash is brutal. He fractures his skull, slips into a 4-day coma, and even gets prematurely declared dead by a Los Angeles newspaper. While he pulls through, miraculously, he misses out on the role of Petty Officer Ruby, which goes to Don Rickles. It's a sobering moment that underscores how tenuous showbiz dreams can be, resting on a razor's edge of fate. Still in that same fateful year, April 8, 1957, Frank marries Christina Randazzo. They have a son, Mitchell. Despite many ups and downs, the couple remains legally married until Frank's death years later, even though they live apart at times. It's a window into a personal life that may have been more complex than many fans realized. As the Hollywood wheel turns, Frank continues to hustle for roles, and soon enough he's on television too. In 1958, he appears in a Western series called Frontier Doctor, playing Hank Butts to Michael Landon's Jim Mason. Audiences might not yet have recognized him, but he's starting to carve out a niche. Over on CBS, he lands a recurring part as Seaman Pulaski in 3 episodes of Jackie Cooper's Hennessy, demonstrating that comedic flair in a naval setting. Next, he makes waves in The Untouchables, that crime series that captured the gritty spirit of the Prohibition era. Bit by bit, he's building a small-screen presence alongside his film roles. By 1960, Frank lands a part in Bells Are Ringing, a musical comedy starring the legendary Judy Holliday and Dean Martin. There, he plays a wannabe method actor, parodying the intense acting style of Marlon Brando, impressions that he had likely been refining since high school. Frank had a knack for portraying tough guys, channeling the vibe of James Cagney, a performer he also famously mimicked in his comedic routines. Yet comedic roles keep beckoning, too, like Basil the cool jazz bassist in Where the Boys Are, 1960, or the bumbling kidnapper in That Darn Cat, 1965, and the goofy inmate in Otto Preminger's Ski-Doo, 1968. Everywhere you turn, he's toggling between comedic buffoonery and gangster-like swagger, adept at conjuring a sinister glare or a clownish grin as needed. Then there's a dramatic twist in 1961. Frank is tapped for a role on The Defenders, an intense courtroom drama starring E.G. Marshall. He plays an impressionist who murders his fiancée while under the psychological grip of one of the personalities he impersonates. It's a chilling, layered performance that proves Frank can do more than make people laugh. There's depth, pathos, a glimpse into the darkness that can lurk behind a performer's comedic facade. He's not just the silly sidekick. He's got the dramatic chops to command serious storylines, too. But it's not long before the comedic spotlight calls again. The Ed Sullivan Show, a staple of American television variety, welcomes Frank as a guest 12 times. His first appearance is on June 17, 1962, but the truly legendary moment arrives on February 9, 1964, when he shares the stage with the Beatles on the very night they make their unforgettable U.S. debut. Imagine being a comedic impressionist on a show that's about to create pop culture history. In that same broadcast, a young Davy Jones, later of the Monkees, is also featured. It's a milestone night for music, but it also cements Frank's status as a sought-after variety show act. Suddenly, his impressions might be in front of tens of millions of viewers, giving him exposure that actors of earlier eras could only dream about. Back in 1962, Frank pops up in an episode of Empire, a modern Western series starring Richard Egan. In The Fire Dancer, he plays Billy Roy Fix, further diversifying his TV resume. Then in 1963 and again in 1965, he appears on Combat, an action-packed war series. In one storyline, he's Private Wharton, a man grappling with unearned heroism. In another, he's Private Gavin, a tank driver who's been expelled from U.S. Army Tank School. These roles might not have top billing, but they allow Frank to prove he can plug into dramatic tension just as easily as comedic one-liners. All the while, Frank's bread and butter remains his impressionist act, which is skyrocketing in popularity at nightclubs across the nation, Las Vegas in particular. He becomes the first impressionist to headline the main room in a major Las Vegas venue, an honor that sets him apart from other comedic acts who primarily worked lounge or secondary stages. He's also the first impressionist to headline the Waldorf Astoria's Empire Room in New York. Night after night, audiences see him transform into Burt Lancaster, complete with forceful hand gestures, or morph into Kirk Douglas, adopting that clenched teeth intonation. He wows them with a dead-on Marlon Brando, narrowing his eyes and slurring his speech in a way that's both parody and homage. It's a spectacle that leaves people marveling at the power of nuanced mimicry. The mid-1960s bring Frank the role that will emblazon him onto pop culture memory in bright neon, the Riddler on ABC's Batman series, which runs from 1966 to 1968. Watching him on that show, cackling with maniacal glee, you see how the comedic impressionist merges with the flamboyant antagonist. Reportedly, Frank drew inspiration for that twisted giggle from Richard Widmark's Tommy Udo character in the 1947 film Kiss of Death, an iconic portrayal of a psychopathic criminal. Frank disliked the original skin-tight unitard seen in the comic books, so he proposed a snappy green suit and bowler hat adorned with question marks, a style that was soon adapted back into the comics themselves. His interpretation of the Riddler is diabolical, theatrical, and flamboyant, generating enough buzz to earn him an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy. He appears as the Riddler in 10 episodes, plus the 1966 Batman feature film. Fans are obsessed. Yet behind the scenes, a financial dispute with ABC sidelines him for part of the second season, briefly replaced by John Astin. Frank returns in season 3 with Ring Around the Riddler, reaffirming the role is his. Years later, in 1979, he even reprises it in Legends of the Superheroes. At this point, the man who once sold popcorn as an usher is a bona fide pop culture icon. He doesn't rest on that success, though. In 1969, he lands a guest role on Star Trek in the now famous episode Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. He portrays Beely, a half-white, half-black alien consumed by hatred for his counterpart, who's the mirror inverse of his own color scheme. This storyline is a science fiction commentary on racism, and many fans recall it as a standout episode from the original Star Trek run. Contrary to rumor, Frank didn't snag an Emmy nod for that performance, but it stands out nonetheless as a chilling demonstration of how effectively he can inhabit a morally driven, psychologically heavy role, even in a series often overshadowed by space gadgets and alien worlds. Around the same time, Frank also treads the Broadway boards, appearing in shows like Jimmy in 1969 and Guys and Dolls in 1971. Whether he's singing, dancing, or delivering comedic lines, his stage presence is magnetizing. Meanwhile, on television, he's turning up everywhere. The Name of the Game, 1969. Ironside, 1974. Hawaii Five-0, 1974. Get Christie Love, 1975. Charlie's Angels, 1977. Wonder Woman, 1977. You name it. Producers recognize that if you need a memorably over-the-top villain, a quirky comedic cameo, or an intense character actor with range, Frank is your man. In 1979, he dips his toe into sci-fi once again, portraying Assassin Seton Kellogg in 2 episodes of Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. The audience sees him as a cunning extraterrestrial threat, further proving that Frank can adapt to any milieu, from Gotham's cartoony crime sprees to the far reaches of space. Then, in 1981, he steps into yet another villainous role in Goliath Awaits, a miniseries about a sunken ocean liner lost during World War II. At the same time, from 1981 to 1982, he starred in the television series The Love Boat and Fantasy Island, 1981 to 1982. He pops up in the soap opera The Edge of Night, playing Smiley Wilson, an intriguing character who uses the gift of mimicry to impersonate other cast members. Anyone who's a fan of soap operas knows how dramatic storylines can get, and Frank's comedic flair combined with a dash of deviousness adds a fresh layer of intrigue. But his talents don't stop at acting. In 1982, he tackles the Gilbert and Sullivan opera Princess Ida, taking on the role of the cantankerous King Gamma for a PBS series called The Complete Gilbert and Sullivan. Yes, that means Frank is singing, and not just in a casual comedic sense. He's immersed in the intricate rhythms and melodies of operetta, playing a part that requires comedic timing and vocal skill. He even takes the show on the road, performing live in various theaters to the delight of fans who never realized he had such vocal chops. Throughout the 1980s, Frank peppers a string of guest spots across television. Whether it's The Fall Guy in 1984, Murder, She Wrote in 1988, or Monsters in 1989, he keeps showcasing an ability to slide from comedic cameo to menacing presence without missing a beat. The big question for a performer who rocketed to fame in the 60s is, can you stay relevant? Frank's answer is a resounding yes, as he marches into the 1990s with roles that remain surprising and varied. In The Meteor Man, 1993, he's a gangster boss, bridging comedic overtones with a hint of genuine menace. On the Nickelodeon show Are You Afraid of the Dark, he portrays an evil magician named Brother Septimus, scaring a new generation of kids with that same wild-eyed energy. Voice acting, too, becomes a fruitful arena for Frank. He steps behind the microphone to voice Reverend Jack Cheese in The Ren and Stimpy Show, 1995, bringing his comedic timing into the zany world of 90s animation. That same year, he appears in Terry Gilliam's dystopian drama 12 Monkeys, adopting the role of a stern boss who gives Dr. Catherine Rayleigh, Madeline Stowe, a hard time. If you look closely, you'll catch the subtle comedic twinkle in his eye amidst the film's dark ambiance. In animation circles, Looney Tunes fans might be excited to learn that Frank voices several iconic characters in the mid-90s, Daffy Duck and Foghorn Leghorn in the short Superior Duck, 1996, then Foghorn and Yosemite Sam in Pulitzer Prize, 1997, and From Hair to Eternity, 1997. Think about that for a second. Stepping into Mel Blanc's shoes is no small feat, but Frank's mastery of vocal nuances positions him perfectly to carry those timeless characters into new comedic escapades. Once again, the boy who grew up bilingual, effortlessly slipping between English and Slovene, is now at the pinnacle of comedic voice acting. Talk about full circle. As the calendar flips to the 2000s, Frank doesn't slow down. He wows Broadway audiences once again by stepping into the persona of George Burns for the one-man stage show Say Goodnight, Gracie, 2002. Here, he's not just performing impressions of multiple celebrities, he's capturing the spirit of one comedic legend with such poignancy and accuracy that the production is nominated for a Tony Award in 2003 for Best Play. Audiences love it. Critics applaud it. It's yet another testament to how Frank never lost his ability to mesmerize a crowd, even as he moved into his late career. He also reunites with old Batman co-stars Adam West and Burt Ward for the 2003 TV movie Return to the Batcave, The Misadventures of Adam and Burt, a nostalgic behind-the-scenes comedic adventure that sees some of the iconic cast members back in their old comedic groove. The DVD release date for that special ends up coinciding tragically with Frank's passing. Before that final curtain, though, he ventures into unexpected territory, a cameo on the Korean drama Love Story in Harvard, 2004, in which he portrays a renowned Harvard law professor, John H. Keynes. Imagine the flamboyant Riddler, or an exuberant impressionist pivoting to the reserved dignity of a Harvard professor. Only Frank Gorshin could juggle those extremes. He even dips into the world of gaming, lending his voice to the characters Marius and Lysander in the popular RPG Diablo II, delighting a legion of video game fans who might not even realize they're listening to a Hollywood icon. Then comes one last hurrah on television, and ironically, it's on a show featuring death and mystery. In May 2005, Frank appears in the CSI crime scene investigation finale, Grave Danger, a two-part episode directed by Quentin Tarantino. He plays himself, a cameo that resonates as a small but touching tribute to his legacy. The episode airs only 2 days after his death, prompting the show to dedicate it to his memory. So, in a strange and poignant twist, millions of viewers watch Frank Gorshin's final TV performance in real time, just as the news of his passing becomes public. So how exactly does that passing occur? In a way, it's heartbreakingly abrupt. On April 25, 2005, Frank finishes performing Say Goodnight, Gracie in Memphis and boards a flight back to Los Angeles. Mid-flight, he suffers severe breathing problems. Oxygen is administered, but upon landing, he's rushed to the hospital in Burbank. 3 weeks later, on May 17, 2005, Frank Gorshin dies at the age of 72 from lung cancer, coupled with emphysema and pneumonia complications. If you've ever heard his distinctive laugh or seen him on stage chain-smoking in those old nightclub routines, you know the man's comedic flame burned bright, but took a toll on his health. He's laid to rest at Calvary Catholic Cemetery in the Hazelwood section of Pittsburgh, a final return to his hometown, the city where he first discovered the joy of performance. So, if you're looking for a star who embodied the playful and the profound, the comedic and the dramatic, the heroic and the villainous, look no further than Frank Gorshin. Think of that wide grin, the quicksilver voice that could morph into anyone, the intense stare that might erupt into a comedic meltdown at any second. Picture him as that unstoppable energy on a black and white TV set in the corner of someone's living room, or in Technicolor on the big screen, or even on the Broadway stage. He gave everything. He tried everything, and for a while, we were lucky enough to bask in the glow of his brilliance. He was the usher boy turned comedic virtuoso, the budding impressionist who overcame personal tragedy to seize the stage, the U.S. Army performer who pivoted into B-movies, the unstoppable showman who soared to stardom as an unforgettable Batman villain, and the respectful mimic who, in his final act, brought George Burns back to life for new audiences. In each persona, you can still glimpse that underlying drive, the same one that once led him to deliver comedic lines in Slovene or in the staterooms of the Waldorf Astoria. Through it all, Frank Gorshin displayed a sense of wonder about performance itself, and that wonder is contagious. Watch him closely, and you can almost feel yourself leaning in, waiting to see who he'll transform into next. His body may rest in Pittsburgh's Calvary Catholic Cemetery, but his spirit wanders through countless classic TV guides, streaming services, and nostalgic DVD collections. And as long as people keep discovering the joys of a wickedly funny Riddler or the comedic mania of his nightclub acts, Frank Gorshin's legacy will remain alive and kicking. In an industry hungry for authenticity and range, he still stands as the consummate showman, a shapeshifter of stage and screen who turned his earliest love of mimicry into an art form all his own. And that, in a world full of imitators, is perhaps the greatest tribute we can pay him, calling him the real deal.